there everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychuck with Queen Bee Creations, and today we are going to do a paper craft, and in particular a Valentine's themed paper craft. So what I have done is I have gone through my stash of dollar store scrapbooking paper, and I have kind of paired them up into sort of matching pages, because I want to glue these back to back, and then I need them to dry. So I wanted to get them glued up, and I'm thinking, I really debated whether pre-gluing them and then slicing them into strips makes sense, or whether or not the strips wouldn't be fully glued, or do I cut them into strips and then glue them? So I'm going to try this. I'm going to spray adhesive them and glue them back to back, let them dry. I'm going to put them between weighted things to keep them flat, leave them to dry overnight, and then tomorrow we'll come and start slicing, because I also don't want, as I'm using my cutter, I don't want it to get all gummy either. So, you know, we'll see which we'll see which way works the best. So I just thought maybe if I did a spray adhesive, it would kind of get all over, and then I could line up my papers. And already I'm off. This likes to stick, doesn't it? All right, so obviously not very good at lining that up, and I will have to trim those off. That'll be okay. It'll all be fine. So I'm just gonna get these the same way, probably glued all wonky, and I'll leave them to dry. I'll straighten them out tomorrow, I swear. While my papers are drying, I thought that I would move on to the next piece, which is this little ladder that I thrifted. So maybe that needs one good whack right there. Okay, now it's good. And rather than paint it out, because it's very rough, very shaky, I thought that what I would do is I would take white wax and I would just kind of dry brush it a little bit with the white wax instead of dry brushing it with paint. So it's kind of done the same way as with paint. I've put a little on my brush. I've dabbed it off onto the lid, and I'm just gonna drag my brush along to get some of that wax sitting on the surface, just again to kind of clean it up a little bit, brighten it up a little bit, but not to fully take away from the wood look. So I'm going to get that done and let it dry overnight. Our papers have all dried, and the only thing that I did do was I did cut off little edges where they weren't glued perfectly flush. So if I had white paper showing, I cut that away. And now what I'm gonna do with my cutter is I am gonna cut all of this into 1-inch strips. You can do this by hand, but because I have a cutter, it just makes my life easier, and I'm all for that. So I'm gonna get all of my sheets cut into 1-inch strips, and then we can start to assemble. All right, to make these, I need one. Now, you can make these any size. I'll be making mine fairly large because I've measured the space that I want to hang them in, and I wanted them substantial. So if you're making them the size that I am, I'm using 1 6-inch piece as my center. Okay, this is what I'm going to be gluing everything to. So then to make the rest of my heart, I need 2 6 inches, 2 8 inches, 2 10, 2 12. Okay, so then you're just going to decide which ones you want on the inside and outside. And I'm just taking a little bit of a hot glue gun and I'm gonna glue that piece down and make sure I'm gluing the same pieces down and glue the other 6-inch piece. So I'm sandwiching my hanger. All right. Now you don't have to use hot glue for this. You could use regular glue, but I'm in the impatient mode. So I'm gluing a little bit of the top rim and I'm pulling that down and meeting those at the very end. So I end up with this. And I'm gonna do the same on the other side. So easy, guys. And then we have a little baby heart at the bottom. And then we go to our next piece. Now I'm thinking that I want to have my blue showing. So I'm going to be tucking that down in. And I'm going to take it right down to the bottom. Okay, so we're always going to tuck down in. So I'm just going to do a little tiny bit of glue along the very bottom. Pull that other heart out and tuck that down in as far as I can, straightening it out. And then a little bit of glue. Oops, a little more. And taking it down to the bottom as well. So we start to build our hearts and we're gonna layer them that way. So the only thing you have to pay attention to is which color you got on the inside, which on the outside, but you can see why I wanted it double-sided. It just makes it a little bit more interesting. Now you could use construction paper that's all one color. It's already colored on both sides. And you could do them all in pink or all in red or all in blue. I mean, you get to do whatever you would like to do. So we're just going to pull that out, tuck that down in, and then a little bit of glue at the tip. Now I need 4 of these for my project, but I'm going to show you an alternative as well. So I'm just going to do the same with my next 2 until this heart is finished. And this becomes our finished heart. And we have our little staple in the center. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do, just so you can see how it kind of hangs and it wobbles back and forth. Just to stabilize it, I'm going to put a little dab of glue on either side of the big heart. And then that will hold it in place right where I want it so that it just, wind, nothing is going to move it. It's just going to stay nice and positioned and stable. And that becomes our heart. Now I got a couple more to go before I show you how I'm going to use them, and then I'll give you some ideas on how else you can use them too. Once your hearts are finished, you can punch a little hole at the top and you could string them up. And you could be done with that. You could add beads on either side of them if you want to. You could use any kind of colored yarn or ribbon, and you could just simply make a bunch of them and then hang them up sideways, spread them out, tie a little knot on either side, and make yourself a big long garland of hearts. So one way to be able to use these, just make a big long garland of them and they would be super cute. Oh, we got a little piece sticking off there. So lovely, especially if I would add little spacers on either side, glue some beads so that they stay put. You could do it with some colored ribbon. You could tie a little bow at the top. I mean, there's a lot that you could do, but these would be super cute as a garland. Now, I, however, am going to be adding them to our ladder. So I do have, I'm gonna do them so they're not permanent, which means I'm not gluing them in place. I'm not, because ultimately they are paper and our ladder is wood. So I'm not gonna do anything that would necessarily destroy the ladder in case whoever owns this wants to switch them out at some time. So what I'm looking at doing is simply tying a very tiny little loop. Now I'm thinking of this in terms of loops, and I'm thinking instead, I could probably just, well, I want them hanging. I was thinking, so let me share. I was thinking I could just fold over a flap of this and use a thumbtack through the flap to insert to the top of one of the rungs of my ladder. But I want them hanging just a little bit. So I am looking at, instead, I'm going to tie just a little baby piece of this, tie it off in a knot, and then simply thumbtack that into place. And I'll give it a try, see which method, and when we come back to show the finished piece, I'll let you know what I ended up with. But I'm thinking I might like the movement and the dangle of it. If I anchored them, with our middle piece, they would be a lot more stationary, right? Because that would just hold them in place. If you like that, that would be the way to go. If you want a little bit of movement and flow, maybe this is the way to go. I don't know. I have to try it and see. All right, this is our finished project. Now, that hemp cord was too thick. It was too heavy for this, and it just didn't hang right. I tried thin wire, but it was too stiff. So I went with some really thin, I don't know what that is, thinner stuff anyway. And so this becomes our finished project. Hard for you guys to see the whole thing, but I had debated doing it sideways so it would become a wall hanger, but then I thought it necessitated holes in people's walls and things, and I thought, you know what, it'll probably be cute just as a little lean against a wall item. And again, you can see how I just wanted these to kind of float free. I wanted them to be able to dangle. I mean, if nobody's touching them, they're not going to be swaying and moving. But I really love these little hearts. Again, you can do them as a garland. You could do them just individually if you wanted, and then just cut away the little center piece that we used. That would be fine. That would work. You could do them into a whole wreath of just these if you really got into the making of them. It was actually quite easy when you just lined up which colors you wanted and cut them in their 6, 8, 10, 12 lengths. The scrapbooking paper, that was hard to say, worked perfectly because it's 12 by 12. So it gave us a lot, and quite honestly, the spray glue worked awesome. That when I was cutting them, there was no separating. They were glued together really well. And I think, especially if you're doing a bunch of them, it's a lot easier way to go. I'll take a couple of pics of this. Let me know what you think, guys. I'm kind of digging the ladder idea. So I never used it at Christmas. I like the fact that this is interchangeable now. So you've got the little ladder, which you could make one quickly on your own if you have some spare pieces of strapping wood or something. But you could hang little separate ornaments for Christmas, which is what I was going to do. And I was going to have a little elf hanging off the side, you know, whatever. But you could hang decorated eggs at Easter time, do hearts at Valentine's. You get the idea. Some big colorful fabric leaves maybe at Thanksgiving or in the fall. So you could use the same idea with other decor. So it can become a year-round thing. Let me know what you think of this one. Love to hear from you as always. Definitely looking forward to seeing you on the next one. And until then, take care.